So today we're gonna look at some common shortfalls and shortcomings and be reminded of the purpose of what the Sabbath day is actually for. So if you want to get up to the starting line, we'll get up to Deuteronomy 5, verse 12 through 15. We're not going to turn there and read through it. You're going to do that on your own time. Today, we're just going to ask a question. Why can it be so hard to be intentional about keeping the Sabbath? Is it from being undisciplined or a challenging family or simply being exhausted? Is it from drifting away a little bit at a time, a little bit further each week? Is it a loneliness, or is it a lack of joy or fear of judgment? For some, it's the don't tell me what to do, but deep down inside, you know that God is very real and that you will have to give an account for your life. But there still is that tingle of coming up to the edge and looking over into the void. And you know you're playing with your own life. But it's the only physical thing that you have in this life that's worth any value. Or is it that this world's so stressful, and on top of it all, you've got all these preparations to do before sunset, and if you fail at one of them, it's just the end of the world for you, and you just tune out, pull the blinds, and just coast through the Sabbath and not even participate with God. There's a few different other things that can become a wedge between you and God. Is it, your pursuit of the love of other people that can draw you away? Or the pursuit of career opportunities, that subtle draw to work a little bit more and infringe on the Sabbath? Is it a chance to run or kick or throw a ball? Is that what's drawing you away? Or is it just you want to be like everybody else out there and just blend in? Or is it simply just uninterrupted time with your electronic devices? All these things can pull you away. But if you think with this with me. What is the value of your legs or your eyes? It's probably somewhat ridiculous to think of what that value is in considering trading it away for something. But what is the cost to replace something like that? It's impossible. Why do we not place more value on the things that are freely given to us? If you take that question and look at it, look at the 10 Commandments that are freely given to us, and that understanding, it has eternal significance if we reach out and take hold of it, and it's free. So what is the Sabbath for? The Sabbath is time. It's time set apart to spend with Jesus Christ. It's time to contemplate creation and the Creator. It's time for learning about God's plan for humanity and the individual plan for you. It's a time to stop working to survive and rest. It's also a time to feel and know God's love. It's also the moment that your interests get put on pause. In Exodus 31, verse 15 through 18, it explains that this is a sign between God and his people. And it's an outward sign of our obedience to God's word. And it's an internal surrender to God within us. So if you flip on your blinker, we're going to do a left turn here. At the commissioning of a construction project, it's written into the contract that there's going to be a weekly meeting between the owners, the architects, and the contractor. And the purpose for doing that is just to review progress, go over different types of information, meet with subcontractors, and do a Q&A on design intent. And without that weekly meeting, there's a loss of focus, and the project begins to suffer for it. But at the start, it's all just an idea. There's nothing tangible. But it isn't until the builder commits to using the proper tools, experience with the materials, and has a clear vision of what the end project is going to be. Then the ideas begin to manifest in the real world, where everybody can see it, touch it, taste it, feel it. And the example is our lives are no different. We have a weekly Sabbath to review our plans, understand our progress, make connections, and do Q&A on design intent. But without this, our life becomes unmanageable. So it is likely that everybody has challenges with materials they work with, wood, concrete, steel, and glass. Or maybe internet provider, source codes, database management, access to the cloud. Anyway, there's a little bit of finesse to make something go from crooked to perfection. The point is to be reminded. There's that personal experience of working with it day in and day out that you put into that process that moves it closer and closer to perfection. So we are to be reminded, if you look around how complex man's world is and all the specialized devices that have been invented to bring ideas to the full enjoyment and use for other people, so that we could trade the benefit of it. How much larger is the creation as a whole that we are gifted to live in? If you can imagine the tool chest that is available in order for God to draw in a family that will become the spirit beings that have his divine nature. He is the master craftsman of our own lives if we let him be. And if you consider the forethought that it took to bring each of us here today, and for each of us to want to be here, what would that take to make happen? These are the tools that are there for the asking if we just continue to overcome this world and live by the Spirit that Christ has put into us. In Deuteronomy 31, God calls several people by name and puts wisdom and knowledge into them so that they could craft different instruments of worship for God. There's special furnitures, and they actually crafted the mercy seat. And all of these were put together from the melted down loot that they got from Egypt and from their spoils of warfare. And it was all melted down into raw materials so it could be put back together as in God's design. So in Daniel chapter 7, verse 27, we can kind of read the punchline to Daniel's vision. As God is calling and working with each of us for a special time. This is the time where, after Christ's return, the kingdom is put into the hands of the saints. That's us, if we continue to strive to be like God. If we continue to overcome. So if we're living God's nature today and pushing past the limiting thoughts that we have that can hold us back, you're putting yourself in these impossible situations and coming to the end of your own strength and reaching out again and again for God's strength in you. That's building faith in you. So we saw the common derailers of the Sabbath, and we reviewed a few of the purposes of this holy time that's set by God. It's a sign between God and his people. It's a time to learn about his plan. It's a time to know God's love for us. It's a time to rest and a time to pause our own self-interests. And then there's a little Scooby snack at the end. In Isaiah 58, verse 13 and 14, it talks about the high places of the earth. But this verse is not the motivation to keep the Sabbath. This is just an occasional little pat on the back for just doing what God commands us to do. Happy Sabbath.